One email, sent to the right people, with the right cracks attached, and an entire polished empire crumbled before the balloon machine. If your bonus got turned into Marvel cupcakes, would you swallow it or crack open the hard drive? He said, "Numbers are just for storytelling." I replied with a story containing timestamps, server logs, and digital signatures, and the boardroom stopped breathing. They canceled my money. I canceled his career. The difference: mine took 8 quarters of flawless work to earn. His took 1 email to destroy. My name is Elena Brooks, and for 8 straight quarters, my compliance team at Vantage Med Packaging ran cleaner than a surgical suite. 0 citations, 0 deadline misses, budget underruns that made the CFO actually smile during quarterly reviews. In the pharmaceutical packaging industry, that's not just good, it's borderline miraculous. Another vendor cert cleared. Owen Price called out from his corner of our open office space, his accounting brain probably already calculating the early completion bonus. That's 17 for 17 this month. I glanced at my monitor where the compliance dashboard glowed green across every metric. 4:30 p.m. on a Thursday in Maple Falls, Michigan, and we were ahead of schedule. Again. "Noah, how's the audit trail looking?" I asked our youngest analyst, who joined us straight from Michigan State with more enthusiasm than experience. 6 months in, he'd become our secret weapon for catching discrepancies others missed. "Pristine," Noah Briggs said, spinning his chair to face me. "Every signature time-stamped, every approval logged. The FDA could walk in right now and find nothing." Jada Monroe, our procurement specialist, looked up from her vendor negotiations. "Speaking of walking in, did you all see the email about tomorrow's town hall?" The email had landed at 2:15 p.m., subject line dripping with manufactured excitement celebrating our quarter plus special announcement. Our new CEO, Colton Rains, had been in the role for exactly 3 weeks. He'd parachuted in from some Silicon Valley wellness startup, armed with TED Talk quotes and a LinkedIn following that supposedly impressed the board. "CFO confirmed the bonus pool last week," Owen said, pulling up his copy of the memo. 48,000 split among the 4 of us, already allocated in the budget. I'd been doing this for 12 years, watching executives come and go like Michigan seasons, but something about this town hall invitation felt different. Maybe it was the balloon emoji in the subject line. Maybe it was the mandatory attendance note buried in paragraph 3. "The new HR director's been ordering party supplies all week," Jada added. "Kara Lowell, she keeps talking about reimagining employee motivation." The coffee maker gurgled its death rattle our 3rd machine this year. The elevator doors had been stuck on floor 2 since Monday, but our compliance metrics, those were perfect. That's what mattered. That's what kept Vantage Med's government contracts flowing and our pharmaceutical clients happy. I pulled up our Q3 report one more time. Every line verified. Every number triple-checked. 8 quarters without a single violation in an industry where one documentation error could trigger a 6-figure fine. My team had built something bulletproof. "Let's wrap up early today," I said, saving my files to the encrypted backup I'd started maintaining out of habit. "Something tells me tomorrow's going to be interesting." Owen laughed. "Define interesting." "When a CEO who's been here 3 weeks throws a celebration for work completed before he arrived," I closed my laptop. "That's either very good or very bad." The Maple Falls skyline, all 6 stories of it, stretched outside our windows. Somewhere in this building, Colton Rains was probably rehearsing his speech, maybe practicing his signature thoughtful pause. We'd earned our bonus. The numbers proved it. The CFO had confirmed it. In the world of regulatory compliance, mathematics didn't lie. But mathematics, I was about to learn, meant nothing to a man who believed in emotional currency. The town hall transformed our usually sterile conference center into what looked like a kindergarten graduation. Balloons in primary colors bobbed against the ceiling. LED screens cycled through motivational quotes over stock photos of soaring eagles. The smell of fresh cupcakes competed with industrial carpet cleaner. Colton Rains stood at the podium wearing an actual superhero cape over his suit. Captain America's shield decorated the red fabric. I caught Owen's eye across the room. His expression mirrored my thought, this can't be real. Vantage Med family. Colton's voice boomed through speakers cranked too loud. Today, we reimagine what motivation means. 300 employees packed into rows of folding chairs. My team sat together in the middle section, close enough to see, but far enough to escape if needed. Kara Lowell, the new HR director, stood beside the podium clutching an iPad like a life preserver, nodding at every word. Your previous leadership believed in old-school rewards, Colton continued, his cape swishing as he gestured. Money, bonuses, financial transactions that reduce our human connections to spreadsheet cells. My stomach tightened. Owen's pen stopped moving on his notepad. But we're building something different, something revolutionary. He paused for effect. That TED Talk pause I'd predicted. That's why I'm canceling all Q3 bonuses. The room went silent. Not the polite silence of attention, but the vacuum silence of 300 people forgetting to breathe. Instead, Colton spread his arms wide, cape billowing. You're all invited to my son's 8th birthday party this Saturday, Marvel-themed cupcakes for everyone. This is what real appreciation looks like, bringing you into my family. Sharing what matters most. Jada's hand found my arm, her grip tight enough to leave marks. Noah had gone pale. Owen set down his pen with the careful precision of someone handling explosives. But the bonus pool was already approved. Someone called out from the back. The CFO sent confirmation last week. Old thinking. Colton beamed. Money comes and goes, but memories experiences. That's emotional currency that appreciates forever. Kara stepped forward, reading from her iPad. I'll be sending out a memo this afternoon about our new emotional currency initiative. We're replacing traditional compensation metrics with connection points and experience bonds. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes. Slides about payment through purpose, charts showing how birthday parties rated higher than bonuses in satisfaction units that no one could define. Colton pulled out action figures, demonstrating how Thor's hammer represented smashing old paradigms. I pulled out my phone, found the CFO's email from 9:17 a.m. last Monday. Bonus pool approved and allocated, $48,000 for compliance. Will process with regular payroll. Already approved, already allocated, our money. Earned through 8 perfect quarters. Transformed into Marvel cupcakes and the privilege of watching an 8-year-old open presents. Questions, Colton asked, pulling off his cape with a flourish. The room stayed silent. What was there to ask? How do you question someone who just stole $48,000 while dressed as a superhero? Fantastic. See you all Saturday. Don't forget to RSVP through Kara. People filed out in clusters, whispers building like steam pressure. I kept my team seated until the room cleared. He can't do this, Noah said finally. That's our money, legally approved. Legally doesn't matter if no one enforces it, Owen replied, his accountant's mind already running calculations. That $48,000 just became profit margin. I stood up slowly, feeling something shift inside me. Not rage was hot and fast and burned out quickly. This was different, colder, more precise. Save everything. I told them. Every email, every memo, every approval. Forward them to personal accounts. Download copies. Elena, Jada said quietly, what are you thinking? I looked at the podium where Colton's cape lay forgotten. Captain America's shield wrinkled and cheap-looking under the fluorescent lights. I'm thinking that a man who steals bonuses while wearing a costume probably cuts other corners too. I picked up my laptop bag. And I'm thinking we should document everything, starting now. The click wasn't audible, but I felt at that moment when compliance shifted from protection to weapon. Colton Rains had just made the kind of error that would fail any audit. He just didn't know it yet. Monday morning brought the email no one saw coming. Marjorie Hale, our senior legal counsel for 15 years, had decided to pursue retirement opportunities effective immediately. Marjorie, who'd scheduled meetings through 2026, Marjorie, who told me 3 days ago she was reviewing our Q4 compliance framework. Her replacement arrived before lunch. Zach Denton, strategic legal advisor. He introduced himself, making rounds through our department, khakis, untucked polo, boat shoes without socks. His business card had a QR code that linked to his motivational podcast. "You know Colton from Stanford?" Owen asked, reading the LinkedIn investigation we'd all done within minutes. "Fraternity brothers," Zach beamed. "Sigma something, crazy times. When Colt called about reimagining legal paradigms here, I couldn't resist." I pulled up our standard operating procedures document. Page 1 required legal review of any changes to compliance protocols. Marjorie's digital signature sat at the bottom, dated 2 weeks ago. "I'll need you to review these SOPs," I said, sliding the tablet across. "Especially the sections on vendor certification and clean room documentation." Zach glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds. "Looks intense. Tell you what, let's rename this whole thing. Risk response protocol sounds so negative. How about opportunity navigation playbook? The FDA requires specific terminology." "The FDA needs to evolve too." He was already typing on his phone. "I'm sending you my revision, much more growth-minded." The document arrived at 2:47 p.m. He'd changed contamination prevention to purity journey. Mandatory compliance checkpoints became trust touchstones. The auto lock on expired cleanroom certifications are fail-safe against packaging contamination was labeled unnecessarily restrictive. I opened my encrypted folder, the one I'd started after the bonus theft, added screenshots of both documents, time-stamped, with metadata preserved. Zach removed the automatic vendor cert flags. Noah whispered, appearing at my desk. "The system won't alert us when documentation expires now." He said alerts create anxiety. Jada added, joining us. "Wants us to use intuitive awareness instead." I pulled up our vendor list, 17 suppliers, each requiring monthly cleanroom certifications for pharmaceutical-grade packaging, miss 1 cert, ship 1 contaminated batch, and VantageMed wouldn't just face fines, we'd face criminal charges. "Keep the old system running in parallel," I told them. "Create a shadow database if you need to. Log everything." "That's not technically within protocol," Owen said carefully. "Neither is replacing our legal counsel with a podcast host." That afternoon, Zach held a legal liberation workshop. Mandatory attendance. He spent 90 minutes explaining how NDAs were trust barriers and how regulatory frameworks stifled innovation. Behind him, a slide showed an eagle breaking free from chains labeled compliance. "Questions?" he asked, bouncing on his heels. "What about our pharmaceutical contracts?" I asked. "They require specific documentation standards." "Documents are just stories we tell ourselves," Zach replied. "What matters is the narrative energy." I screencapped that quote at 4:21 p.m., added it to my folder, now organized by date and violation type. The folder had grown to 2 gigabytes in 3 days. That evening, alone in the office, I ran a system audit. 3 vendor certifications had expired since Zach removed the flags. 3 suppliers shipping materials for pediatric medication packaging without current cleanroom validation. In Marjorie's world, that would trigger immediate holds and investigations. In Zach's world, it didn't exist unless someone noticed. I noticed, I documented, I encrypted. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that I recognized as Marjorie's personal cell. "Retired with full pension, plus 18 months severance. NDA was non-negotiable. Your move." I deleted the text, but not before screenshotting it. Added it to a new subfolder, incentivized exits. The office was dark except for my monitor's glow. Somewhere in this building, Colton and Zach were probably celebrating their disruption of the old guard, planning their next liberation. They'd removed the guardrails, thinking it would help them move faster. They didn't realize those rails were the only thing keeping them from the cliff. I saved everything to 3 separate drives, each encrypted differently. Whatever came next, I'd need evidence, real evidence, The kind that wouldn't care about narrative energy or emotional currency. The kind that would stand up in court. The Thursday culture huddle started at 3 p.m. sharp. Colton had made these meetings mandatory, replacing our compliance reviews with what he called narrative alignment sessions. 47 minutes in, he dropped the bomb. Q4 numbers are looking soft, Colton said, clicking through slides that turned data into abstract art. But numbers are just ingredients. We're the chefs. We can make any dish we want. The FDA requires accurate reporting, I said, keeping my voice level. We can't just... Can't is yesterday's vocabulary. Colton's smile never wavered. Zach, tell them about narrative flexibility. Zach stood, his latest untucked shirt featuring tiny pineapples. Legal frameworks are interpretation guidelines, not prison bars. If we say our clean room was certified on October 1st, who's to say it wasn't dates or constructs? The timestamp on the certification says otherwise. Owen said quietly, timestamps can be contextualized. Colton replied, look, I'm not asking anyone to lie, just to tell better stories. If a vendor cert expired on September 28th, but we renewed it October 3rd, why hurt ourselves over 5 days, backdate it, smooth the narrative? The room went silent. 18 department heads around a conference table, and no one breathed. That's fraud, Owen said. The word hung in the air like a chemical spill. Colton's smile tightened. That's a very aggressive interpretation. Owen, very old paradigm thinking. Owen closed his laptop. The click echoed in the silence. He stood, pushed in his chair with deliberate precision, and walked out. No speech, no dramatic exit, just a man who'd reached his limit. Anyone else feeling trapped by yesterday's thinking? Colton asked the room. No one moved, no one spoke, but I saw Jada's hand shaking as she took notes. Saw Noah's jaw clench as he stared at his screen. Great. So we're aligned, Elena. I'll need those Q4 projections revised by tomorrow. Remember, we're telling a story of success. After the meeting, I found Owen in the parking lot, sitting in his car with the engine off. 15 years, he said when I knocked on his window. 15 years of perfect books, never fudged a number, never backdated a document. I know. He's going to destroy everything, every system, every protection. Owen looked at me. You're documenting this, right? Everything. Good. He started his engine. I'm taking my vacation days. All of them, starting tomorrow. When this explodes, I won't be near it. That night, I stayed until 11:45 p.m., downloading everything. The original Q4 projections, the meeting recording from my phone, the vendor certifications with their actual dates, Zach's emails about temporal flexibility, Colton's Slack messages to department heads. Remember, reality is what we report it to be. I created parallel documentation. What actually happened? Set B. What Colton wanted to report. The gap between them grew wider each day. My phone buzzed. A notification from the FDA website I monitored. New inspection schedule posted. VantageMed was on the list for January. Random audit. Standard comprehensive review. 3 months to prepare. Or in Colton's world, 3 months to dig the hole deeper. I screenshot the inspection notice, added it to my encrypted folder. Then I opened a new document and started typing. Regulatory concerns requiring immediate attention. Not a resignation, not a whistleblower report, not yet. Just a compliance officer doing her job. Documenting concerns through proper channels. The kind of memo that created legal obligations. The kind that started paper trails. I addressed it to the board of directors. CC'd the audit committee. Attached supporting documentation. Hesitated over the send button. Through my office window, I could see Colton's Tesla in the executive lot. Custom plate reading DSUPTR. Inside the building, he was probably planning more liberation, more flexibility, more stories. I hit send at 11:59 p.m. The memo would land in inboxes at midnight. By morning, the board would have questions. Colton would have to respond. On the record, in writing. The first crack in his narrative had just been documented. The abandoned archive room in Building C became my war room. Friday night, 10:15 p.m. Security lights casting shadows through dusty shelves. I'd disabled the Wi-Fi on my laptop, pulled the Ethernet cable, worked entirely offline. The only sound was the ancient ventilation system and my fingers on keys. Tab 1 opened vendor anomalies. 33 suppliers flagged. 17 missing certifications. 11 approved by Zach without quality review. His digital signature appearing on documents he'd never read. Each entry cross-referenced with shipping logs, delivery confirmations, batch numbers. Delta Packaging alone had shipped 12,000 units of pediatric seizure medication containers with expired cleanroom certs. I screenshot everything, saved to encrypted USB, verified the hash values. Tab 2 timeline tampering. October 1st, 9:12 a.m. Original timestamp on Rexford Supplies certification showing expiration September 28th. October 1st, 2:37 p.m. Modified timestamp appearing in system. Backdated to September 25th. October 1st, 4:41 p.m. Colton's Slack to Zach. Fix that narrative hiccup. The metadata told the real story. File creation dates that didn't match document dates. Server logs showing alterations. Zach's IP address appearing on files he'd supposedly reviewed days before he was hired. My phone, airplane mode enabled, had been recording for 3 hours. Every screenshot, every file save, every cursor movement all captured. Chain of custody for digital evidence. Tab 3. Policy destruction. Side-by-side comparison of every altered document. Marjorie's original protocols versus Zach's revisions. Critical safety requirements deleted. Replaced with trust-based assessments. Mandatory FDA reporting schedules changed to suggested timelines. The word required appeared 87 times in Marjorie's documents, 3 times in Zach's. I pulled up Colton's LinkedIn posts from the past week. Disrupting outdated thinking at VantageMed, with a photo of him and Zach high-fiving. Compliance doesn't mean complacence over a sunset stock photo. Each post screenshot, metadata preserved. The ventilation system clicked off. In the sudden silence, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I killed my screen, sat in darkness, breathing shallow. The footsteps passed. Security doing rounds, probably. Back to work. Tab 4, the mathematics of fraud. If reported accurately, Q4 showed a 12% compliance failure rate. If reported using Colton's narrative, it showed 2%. The difference approximately $4.7 million in potential FDA fines, not counting criminal liability. I created a visualization actual versus reported. Red lines diverging like opening scissors. Added annotations with specific violation codes. Regulatory citations. Precedent cases where similar actions led to federal prosecution. 2:37 a.m. My eyes burned from screen glare. Empty coffee cups formed a perimeter around my laptop, but the document was complete. 47 pages of evidence, 300 supporting files, every claim sourced and verified. I named it simply Compliance Review Q4 Preliminary. Then I created the second document, the one that mattered. Executive Summary for Board of Directors. 1 page, bullet points, no emotion, no narrative, just facts. 33 vendors operating outside compliance. 17 missing certifications, endangering pediatric medications. Documented evidence of backdating. FDA inspection scheduled January. Potential liability, $15 to $20 million. Potential criminal charges, fraud, endangerment, falsification of federal documents. At the bottom, 1 line, full documentation available upon request. I saved everything to 3 separate USB drives, each encrypted with different keys. One would go in my safety deposit box, one in my home safe, one somewhere else, somewhere Colton would never think to look. The archive room smelled like old paper and dead air. Through the narrow window, I could see the parking lot, empty except for security patrol. In 5 hours, employees would start arriving for Colton's mandatory Saturday culture celebration before his son's birthday party. I packed up slowly, methodically, wiped down the desk, removed any trace of my presence. The USBs felt heavy in my pocket, 47 pages that could end careers, including mine. But Owen's words echoed, "He's going to destroy everything." Not if I destroyed him first. I drove home as the sun started rising. Lake Michigan visible in the distance. The radio played something about disruption in Silicon Valley. Another startup promising to revolutionize something that didn't need revolutionizing. In my rearview mirror, Vantage Med's building shrank to nothing. Inside, Colton was probably already there, setting up his son's party, adjusting his cape, preparing to play hero. He had no idea that in my pocket, I carried his kryptonite. Saturday, 11:47 a.m. The office had transformed into a Marvel universe. Spider-Man balloons covered compliance violations on the bulletin board. Iron Man cutouts stood where safety protocols used to hang. The conference room where Owen had walked out was now a face painting station. Colton's son ran through the hallways wearing a Thor costume, employees' children trailing behind. Kara Lowell supervised a bounce house in the loading dock, where we usually received pharmaceutical shipments. The clean room viewing windows were covered with superhero posters. My laptop sat closed on my desk. Inside it, the email that would end this circus waited in my drafts folder. Elena. Colton appeared, Captain America shield in hand. "Where's your costume? We're all heroes today." "I need to finish the Q4 report," I said, "the one you wanted revised. Today it's Saturday. It's about family." He gestured at the chaos. "This is what matters. Connection, joy, not spreadsheets." Behind him, Zach was teaching kids to throw foam darts at a target labeled Old Thinking. Each bullseye earned candy. The irony wasn't lost on me training children to attack the very principles that kept their medications safe. "The FDA doesn't take weekends off," I said. Colton's smile flickered. "You know what your problem is. You can't let go. You can't embrace the new way." I opened my laptop. The email stared back at me. Subject line, Compliance Department, unable to certify Q4 report. "Actually," I said, "I'm about to embrace radical transparency." "What does that mean?" I turned my screen so he could see the recipient list. Every board member, the audit committee, the senior advisory council, the former CEO who still held 8% of company stock. Marjorie's replacement at her new firm who happened to specialize in FDA defense. The attachment icon showed 47 pages, plus supporting documentation, compressed, encrypted, with download instructions. "What is this?" His Captain America shield lowered. One email, sent to the right people. I moved my finger to the trackpad, with the right evidence attached. "Elena, let's discuss this." "We did. Thursday at 3 p.m. You called it narrative flexibility." Zach appeared, sensing danger. "Hey, what's happening here? Why aren't we celebrating?" I looked at him. "Quick legal question. Zach, what's the federal sentence for falsifying FDA documentation?" His pineapple shirt seemed to wilt. That's not relevant to." 5 to 8 years, per count." I turned back to my screen. "We have 33 counts." The birthday party noise continued around us. Someone had started the bubble machine. Children shrieked with delight. In our corner of the office, time had stopped. "You're bluffing," Colton said. "You wouldn't risk your career." "My career ended when you stole my bonus and dressed up like a superhero to announce it." My finger hovered over the send button. "The question is whether yours ends with an SEC investigation or just a board vote." "What do you want?" Zach asked. "Money promotion." "I want what I've always wanted. Compliant operations, real documentation, actual safety protocols." I looked at Colton. "And I want you gone." "You can't." I clicked send. The swoosh sound was barely audible over the party noise. but we all heard it. Sent, Saturday, 11:59 a.m., time-stamped, server logged, with read receipts enabled. I closed my laptop. Your phone should start ringing in about 3 minutes. Colton's face had gone white under his red cowl. You just destroyed yourself. You'll never work in this industry again. Maybe, I stood up, picked up my bag, but I'll be able to sleep at night knowing kids won't get contaminated medications because you wanted to tell better stories. His phone buzzed, then Zach's, then both again, repeatedly, urgently. I walked past the bounce house, the face painting, the cake shaped like Thor's hammer. Employees noticed Colton's expression, saw him and Zach rushing toward the executive conference room, phones pressed to ears. At the exit, I turned back. Through the glass doors, I could see Colton's son still playing, unaware that his father's hero costume was about to become evidence in a federal investigation. One email, that's all it took. The October sun felt warm on my face as I walked to my car. Behind me, the party continued, but the music sounded different now, like the end of something. Or maybe the beginning. The glass conference room on the executive floor had been cleared of party decorations. 2 p.m., Saturday, the board had assembled within 2 hours of my email board members dialing in from weekend homes, golf courses, one from his daughter's wedding reception. I sat at one end of the polished table. The chairman, Robert Fitzgerald, 71 years old with 40 years in pharmaceutical manufacturing, sat at the other. Between us, 3 board members physically present, 4 on the conference screen, and the company's external legal counsel who'd driven 90 minutes from Detroit. The projector displayed tab 1 vendor anomalies. 17 missing certifications. Fitzgerald read aloud, his voice steady as granite. For pediatric medications. The room temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. Tab 2 appeared, the timestamps, the server logs, the backdating evidence laid out like an autopsy report. This is Colton's Slack message, I said, highlighting the text. Quote, fix that narrative hiccup. Sent 4 minutes after the timestamp alteration. Board member Sandra Walsh, former FDA inspector, leaned forward. This isn't just non-compliance. This is deliberate falsification. Tab 3. Zach's systematic destruction of safety protocols. The side-by-side comparison drew sharp breaths from the board members. Marjorie Hale's exit, Fitzgerald asked. 18-month severance plus full pension acceleration. The NDA was signed within 6 hours of notification. The general counsel was typing furiously on his laptop. The liability exposure is catastrophic. If any contaminated product shipped, 12,000 units through Delta packaging alone, I said, pulling up the shipping logs. Pediatric seizure medications, already distributed to hospitals in 6 states. The conference room door opened. Colton entered, still wearing his Captain America costume, Zach behind him in his pineapple shirt. They looked like lost extras from different movies. This is an ambush. Colton started. Elena has always resisted change. Sit down, Fitzgerald said. The tone could have frozen Lake Michigan. The projector showed Colton's LinkedIn post. Disrupting outdated thinking at VantageMed. Next to it, the federal statute on FDA fraud. The contrast was surgical. Mr. Raines, Fitzgerald said, did you instruct staff to backdate documents? I encouraged narrative flexibility. Yes or no? Colton's jaw worked. Context matters more than... The FDA doesn't care about context. Sandra Walsh pulled up something on her tablet. I still have contacts there. They're very interested in this email Elena sent. Very interested. Zach raised his hand like a schoolchild. I was just following Colton's vision. You're not licensed to practice law in Michigan. The general counsel interrupted. You've been approving legal documents without standing. That's a separate felony. The projector clicked to my final slide. The Excel visualization showing actual versus reported compliance rates, red lines diverging like a wound opening. 20 million in fines, minimum. I said, that's if no patient harm occurs. If even one child has an adverse reaction from contaminated packaging, stop. Fitzgerald stood. Miss Brooks, do you have all this documentation secured? 3 encrypted copies, different locations, hash values verified. He nodded, then turned to Colton. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't, I have a contract. With a fraud clause, the General Counsel pulled up the document. Violation voids all severance and benefits. This is insane, I was innovating, disrupting. You were committing federal crimes, Sandra Walsh said, while dressed as a superhero at a children's party. Security arrived, not the friendly weekend guards, but the serious ones, former military, the kind companies keep for real problems. Colton looked at me as they flanked him. You did this. You destroyed everything. No, I said. I documented everything. You destroyed it all by yourself. They led him out past the windows where his son's party continued below. Zach followed, already on his phone with what sounded like his actual lawyer. The boardroom fell silent. Through the glass, we could see balloon arrangements starting to deflate, the bubble machine running out of soap. Miss Brooks, Fitzgerald said finally, the board needs to discuss next steps, but I want you to know. He paused, choosing words carefully. Your documentation may have saved this company, and definitely saved lives. I nodded, gathered my laptop, and left them to their emergency session. In the hallway, I could hear Fitzgerald's voice, get Marjorie Hale on the phone, offer her whatever she wants to come back. Down below, employees were starting to pack up the party supplies. Thor's hammer cake sat uneaten. The bounce house deflated slowly, collapsing in on itself like Colton's narrative. The atrium still sparkled with Marvel decorations when Fitzgerald walked in. 3:27 p.m., Saturday. Employees lingered in clusters, whispers spreading like cracks in glass. Parents held their children's hands tighter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Colton stood near the reception desk, security flanking him, still in his Captain America costume. He was making one last speech to whoever would listen. This company doesn't understand vision, he declared, voice echoing off the marble walls. I tried to bring humanity to this place, joy, connection, but they're stuck in the old paradigm of fear and rules. Fitzgerald approached with the measured pace of someone who'd fired executives for 4 decades. The crowd parted, creating a corridor between them. Mr. Raines, Fitzgerald said, his voice carrying without shouting, your personal belongings will be shipped to you. Bob, let's discuss this. Leader to leader. I know you get it, the need to disrupt, to challenge. You're terminated effective immediately. The words fell like a judge's gavel, clean, final, no narrative to rewrite. Colton's face cycled through emotions: disbelief, anger, then something like panic. You're making a mistake. The board will regret this. The shareholders will appreciate that we stopped a federal investigation before it started. Fitzgerald stepped closer. You have 5 minutes to leave the premises. Security moved forward. Colton's son appeared from behind a Spider-Man display, still in his Thor costume, holding his foam hammer. He looked confused, searching for his father's eyes. Daddy, are we going home? For the first time since I'd known him, Colton had no words, no paradigm shift, no narrative, just a man in a cheap cape being escorted from a building while his son watched. Yes, buddy, he finally said. Party's over. They walked him out through the main entrance, past the deflating bounce house, past the table of uneaten Marvel cupcakes, $48,000 worth of bonus transformed into sugar and food coloring that no one wanted to touch. I stood by the stairwell, half in shadow. Fitzgerald's eyes found mine across the atrium. He gave a single nod, the kind that said more than any speech about disruption ever could. The glass doors closed behind Colton with a soft, pneumatic hiss. Through the windows, we watched him walk to his Tesla, his cape dragging on the asphalt, his son's small hand in his. The custom license plate DSUPR caught the afternoon sun one last time. Attention, everyone! Fitzgerald announced to the remaining crowd, "The board will be conducting a full review of recent decisions. All terminated benefits and bonuses will be reinstated. Marjorie Hale will return as general counsel Monday morning." A ripple went through the crowd. Not cheers, we were too Midwestern for that, but a collective exhale, like the building itself had been holding its breath. "Furthermore," he continued, "Elena Brooks will be leading the FDA compliance review to ensure we meet January's inspection standards." I didn't want applause, didn't need recognition. I just wanted my spreadsheets green, my certifications current, and children's medications safe. Noah appeared at my elbow. "That was incredible." "That was documentation," I corrected. Jada joined us. Owen, too, he'd driven back when he heard what was happening. We stood together, watching maintenance begin removing the superhero decorations. "One email," Owen said, shaking his head. "You ended him with one email." "My," I said, watching the last of the balloons being pulled down. "He ended himself the moment he thought compliance was optional. I just made sure there was a record." The October sun was setting over Maple Falls, painting the windows gold. Monday would bring paperwork, FDA prep, the slow restoration of every protection Colton had tried to dismantle. But for now, I watched his Tesla disappear into traffic, carrying away a man who'd learned the hardest lesson in regulatory compliance. Numbers don't lie. They don't care about your narrative, and they always leave a trail. The glass door locked behind him with a definitive click. Career canceled. No sequel planned. Thank you for listening to this story of corporate justice. Where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this tale of compliance revenge resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed someone's career implode from their own reckless decisions? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.